Hey everyone, welcome into week 4 of the Prep Baseball Wisconsin WIAA podcast. This week we saw a lot of action once again, including our Prep Baseball Wisconsin High School Invitational. David, you got to go out to it. We were all at it. But what were your thoughts on the weekend and some of your initial takeaways?
It was a great weekend of baseball. Really cold, so that was a little bit tough to brave the cold, especially the nightcap on Friday night, and then during the day as it got kind of cloudy on Saturday. Those were a little bit rough, but nothing that I haven't been through before. But there were some big performers, individual guys that we'll go through. Kettle Moraine had a nice showing, had a couple nice wins. So a lot of good baseball even amidst the cold, and good to see so many teams concentrated in one area.
Exactly, I agree. The Rock was kind of the place to be this weekend. And Isaiah, you were also there too. Could you talk about some of your biggest winners from the weekend, whether that's from a team or an individual perspective, just to start it off here?
Yeah, team-wise, Kettle Moraine for sure. They took down a good Menomonee Grove team on Friday night under the cold, walk-off win. And then on Saturday night, played a good St. Thomas More team, Power 25 matchup, and kind of just took it to them. Had a big inning. The bats were hot. The pitching was solid. It was just a good overall game from them. Probably individually, Calvin Moreau from Menomonee Grove pitched on that Friday night game from Menomonee Grove, and he was pretty dominant. He just got up to 90, spun in just a sharp breaking ball for strikes, swing and miss, pounded the zone with those two pitches. It was pretty easy too, and it was windy, cold, and he was still up to 90. It was a pretty impressive performance from him. But yeah, those are like the biggest two right now.
For sure. And in that Menomonee Grove Kelmering game, that bottom of the seventh where the Blazers put up 4 runs to tie it up, could you talk about some of the approaches that you saw between Jonah Roloff, Chase Stout, and then Lincoln Asher to win it, and how those guys kind of stood out?
Yeah, for sure. Chase Stout, freshman on varsity, came in a big moment. Runners on, needed 1 or 2 more runs to tie the game up. He got it to 2 strikes, worked the count, and then kind of just smacked it double the other way in the gap, brought home the runs, and helped Kettle Moraine get the win, and then Lincoln Asher with the walk-off win after a triple. It was just just good approaches. They kind of knew what they wanted to do, and they executed it, which is something good to see from the Blazers for sure.
And then on that Saturday, too, you were able to take in Hudson and Hartford. Could you talk about some of the standouts from that group? And they've each gotten off the good starts this year. Hartford's obviously undefeated, and Hudson's put together some really good wins,
Yeah.
despite losing on that Saturday. That was a quick turnaround, but beating Germantown. Could you talk about some of their standouts?
Yeah, for Hartford, I mean Carter Cuts. You can't overlook him. He is one of the biggest contributors of that team. He pitches, he hits, he kind of does it all for them. Then they also got a few other like role players that are, I mean, still good. Aiden Kolb, Caden Romans, they'll all just get on base, create havoc on the base pass, and just kind of work counts. They just do the little things right too. They're just gonna win games. They're not gonna be crazy, put up a lot of runs, but they'll just win. That's just the way they do it. That's the way they've done it for a while. They're coached really well. Yeah, they're a pretty solid overall team. And then Hudson again, same kind of thing, but they got, I mean, some big time bats at the top of the lineup. Landon Zuli, Logan Hagman, a freshman who's kind of taken his first year at the varsity level by storm. Already hit a home run over the weekend, batting leadoff for them. I mean, and then Hunter Carlson behind the plate controls the game, and then he's getting hits too when it matters for them. So yeah, and Sam Abrahamson too, seeing time on both sides of the ball. So they got a good all-around team as well.
Yeah, and then David, did you really have a favorite? Like, this was probably the most action you've seen over the course of the weekend. Did you have a favorite team that emerged from those past 2 days here?
I thought Kettle Moraine had 2 impressive wins. I would say there was nobody that wowed me so much individually, but it was the team effort. But if I were to pick a couple standouts, I would say it would have to be Jonah Roloff and J.J. Wolbert. Really like J.J. Wolbert's actions up the middle, nice left-handed swing. Same thing with Roloff. They're both really solid guys. And Kettle Moraine, I know, is thin on pitching right now. They've had a number of injuries, and they were expected to be one of the top teams in the state. And even without the pitching, they've still been really good, and we'll see if that holds up. But I thought their win coming back in that Monona Grove game, really tough matchup early against Cal Moreau, and I think you easily could have just kind of shut it down late in the game when it's 42 degrees and windy, 10 p.m. on a Friday night. You're facing, or you're down 4-0. You could have shut it down, and instead they really took advantage of that, came back, tied it, and won. And then they had to play the night game again on Saturday and had a nice win over St. Thomas More. So I think if I were to pick one team, it would probably be Kettle Moraine as really an impressive team that showed out at the Invitational.
For sure. And I did want to touch on St. Thomas More and Muskego. I think they're two teams who both eventually lost this weekend, which is a little rare for them. But honestly, they both showed pretty well and were some of the top teams still in the area and within the state. Isaiah, could you really break down some of Muskego's young talent mixed in with their veteran core that we got to witness over the weekend?
Yeah, for sure. Their underclassmen are arguably the best in the state. They're loaded. Ben Kuglich, Tyson Grokowski, Maddox Lassard, and Joey Shaw. The list doesn't stop there either. You could go on and on about their underclassmen. They're super talented. It might take some time for them to kind of get acclimated to varsity level and all that stuff. But even this past weekend, they were still played well. They played a tough St. Thomas More team. They were on the losing end on that one, but faced a really good arm who's been dominant already in Sam Mommer so far this spring. But it was a close game. It was pretty impressive stuff from them. Joey Shaw was on the mound, pitched solid. That's just another arm they can put out there on a daily basis. And then St. Thomas More. It's a tough injury to Kyle Levo. He was a big part of that team, but even without him, they're still winning. There's no other way to put it. They're just one of those grindy teams who's just gonna grind out tough at bats. Their pitchers will just throw strikes, put the ball in play, and then the defense is good enough to get the outs. So they're just, and then in D2, they're one of the top D2 teams probably in the state. So they're looking real good heading into a tough stretch for them.
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say their resilience and their ability really to not make mistakes and grinding out a tough win against Muskego. They're going to have to do that throughout the rest of the year, especially within their non-conference schedule and really within their sectional and facing tough teams like Pewaukee and Kettle Moraine Lutheran. So they'll be ready to go in that area.
For sure.
And really, we saw your 3 past years. You've been doing this for probably 3 years, right? That was your third tournament.
Right. Third one,
right?
I think.
Third high school invitational of some sort. Was this the best action that you saw game-wise, just the walk-offs and that stuff?
Yeah. It kind of turned out that way. I think when we I guess Andy made the schedule, we kind of were like, oh, let's see how it goes. It was kind of just some random teams, but then just turns out that all these teams were on really hot heading into the tournament. Like Hartford undefeated. A lot of them were Power 25 teams that we knew were going to be solid, but there were some teams that surprised us for sure. Even the talent down there, probably 3 or 4 90-mile-per-hour arms. I don't know if we've seen that in the past. And then I think this one was the coldest one we had. So it was pretty cool stuff. Every game had really good prospects. It was a good game. So yeah, it was a really fun weekend, good weekend of baseball for sure.
For sure. And David, you were on the Brookfield Central Greendale game where Jackson Clayton obviously hit the walk-off single to win it for the Lancers. Could you break down some of what you were able to film in that one and really our first walk-off of the weekend? Yeah,
Jackson Clayton was impressive. Really liked the swing, the actions in the infield. So he's someone definitely that my first look at him and someone that I'll continue to watch. Another guy, Aaron Robinson, just extremely physical athlete, imposing presence. When I saw him walk by, I didn't believe him that he was a high schooler actually initially. So just huge guy. You could see the pop there. And Braylon Bigler, another guy who we saw him pitch. His future might be a little bit more in the infield, but like the bat and just like the presence, the competitive nature that he carries. So a few guys on Brookfield Central, they might not stand out as some of the teams that have a ton of prospects like Muskego, but definitely some guys that I liked.
For sure. And then I had the benefit of being able to film 2 separate game winners after that. Obviously, Lincoln Asher's RBI single base hit, and then Connor Curtis for Waukesha North. That was a shootout. That was a very high scoring affair. I believe 12-11 was the final against Sussex Hamilton. That was the most runs we saw all weekend. And Connor Curtis continues to produce for that group. Junior really just like muscled an RBI single up the middle in the center field and broke the 11-11 tie in extra innings and got the win for the North Stars, who really had a good week. His brother, AJ Curtis, was able to shut down Arrowhead. Another solid week in the Classic 8, and really any wins you can get in that conference are good ones. So we really saw a lot of good from the past weekend here, and that was exciting to see and really good for the state. Isaiah, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Not really. I just thought it was cool. I always think it's cool to see those teams, like just some of those kind of random teams that, like Hudson made it has to be 5 hours down to Franklin. They made the trip. It's always cool to see them, especially at the Rock. And then just kind of like some different matchups you would like they played, like Germantown, which never would have happened before. And then it's just cool to see games like that, like Nicolay, St. Mary's Catholic, like that just wouldn't happen, on a normal WIAA day. So I always think it's cool to see like those two teams kind of square off and then see how they match up with each other because it's tough if they're not playing each other on a daily basis or something like that. So cool stuff.
For sure. Well, thank you for your time, Isaiah. We really appreciate it.
And we'll now transition to our interview with Caleb Bounds, head coach over at MATC. We talked a little bit about the recruiting process, his background, what he looks for in high school players, and his experience so far at MATC. So really enjoyed interviewing Caleb Bounds. And without further ado, here is our interview with the head coach at MATC.
Coach, thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
I wanted to start out before we get maybe a little bit deeper. Tell us a little bit about how the season's going for you guys. We're in mid-late April already, so season over halfway through. Tell us where the season's at in terms of maybe, I guess, where you were hoping. Do you feel like you're there? What are you trying to do still? Where are we at right now with the season?
Yeah, so right now we've played 44 games or something like that. So we have the fewest games left in our whole entire region by a large margin. We've been very thankful for us having turf and getting lucky and going play the South teams the couple times where weather was bad up here. We started off really, really rough. I mean, I think we started off like 1-11 down south in Missouri on 3 straight weekends. And then we turned it around and got close to 500. And we've hit a little patch here where we've lost the last 4 or 5 in a row here. So right now we're 18-26. I think we have a solid squad. We are ultra young. We have 25 freshmen on our roster this year out of the 37 active guys. And so, I mean, we're doing it with a very freshman-heavy lineup. We do have a few sophomores that are being the leaders there and having big roles for us. But we're just really young, and I think that's why our record is what it is. I mean, you have growing pains with it, having a lot of guys get out there for the first time. And, I mean, we've even had some guys battle injuries, things like that. So, I like where we're at. I'd like us to get winning here before we get to postseason just to get back on that train. But we have like 12 games left in our season is all over like the next 3 weeks. So we're pretty much getting down to where we're not having to play a ton. So we're just playing roughly 4 games a week for the next 3 weeks and then calling it the season there. And then we'll go into hopefully the tournament. So the top 12 teams make it out of our region. And so we'll have our meeting on, I think it's like May 5th, that Monday, and see who makes it. And then that weekend goes into tournament play.
How has year 2 for you been different than year 1, maybe in terms of on-field results, but also just in you maybe having a little bit more being more established in the program? How has it differed this year?
A little less stressful. Sometimes it's more stressful. I've been able to do a lot more with the team on just knowing that whenever I got here, I got here right at the beginning of August last year, or 2 years ago. And so, I had 15 days to pretty much get a schedule and finish up a class. Whenever I took over the program last year, we had like 18 guys, 19 guys there. And so we went and grabbed like 14 kids in like a 14-day span. And so it was different. Last year's team was very sophomore heavy. I think we had 20 sophomores out of the 32-man roster that we had, or something crazy like that. And so a lot of guys had a ton of experience where they were ready to go early on. Where this year it's been a very, very freshman dominant season. Most games we're starting 6 freshmen in the field, and then we have 5 or 6 freshmen that have gotten a ton of innings for us this year as well. Where last year, our top 5 arms, 4 of them were sophomores, and if we look at the field, we had a sophomore at every single position except for 1. And so that was a big thing for us, was that we were just a lot older last year. But in terms of like getting everything together, I thought it's been a lot easier to implement everything that we want and what we do, because it's a whole new group of guys who weren't accustomed to a different style. And so I think last year is more of a merge the styles together and make sure that it works, where this year is more of a, hey, this is what we're going to do, this is how it's going to be done, and what we're doing moving forward. And so it's good because those freshmen this year are integrated into that and understand and know. And so I think you'll see huge strides next year with that, just because we're going to be that older team again.
Could you explain a little bit more about what that difference in style is? I played at MATC under the
Yep.
previous coach. What are some of the things that you hope, maybe not necessarily to like completely overhaul, but things maybe that you advocate for your style that you wanted to bring to MATC?
One thing we're ultra aggressive when it comes to stealing bases, running on the base path. Last year we stole roughly 200 bases as a team. This year I think we're at like 110, 115. And so as guys are growing and doing that, that's something that they know, is that they have freedom to run. We're going to run. We're going to hit and run. And something that this team has to work on, that's something we do a lot, is that we will bunt and handle the bat in that way. And so I think that's sometimes the toughest thing, is like the hitter's approach and what they've done in high school versus coming into college and what works. And I tell guys, like, for me, my style is to be aggressive, right? Everyone knows that we're going to be aggressive, but I think you have to change your style based on what you have sometimes. And you try to recruit it as much as possible to know that we're going to have a lot of speed. But last year we had a lot more home runs than ever before, and this year we're on pace to break that again. And so we just have a little bit more size, and so we're trying to recruit more size here. And so I think you'll see us go away from stealing the 200 bases and probably be closer to the 100 to 120, and hopefully have our home run numbers be in the 30 to 40 range as a team, versus that 10 to 15 that we have seen previously. And so that's something that has really changed for us. On the arm side, I think everyone's a lot of the same. We're going to bring in guys that are all sorts of sizes. We have guys that throw sidearm. I have guys that are 5'5" on the bump, and I have guys that are 6'5" on the bump. And so, for us, I like having a lot of differences. I want it to be really tough for other teams that have to face us when it comes to the pitching side, and have to prepare for a lot of different angles, different pitches, things like that. So we do a lot of different things on pitch shaping, and actually teaching guys a lot of different pitches that don't get used as much, that most programs do. We have a lot of guys that will do a sinker splitter action, where a lot of guys are more of the fastball, slider, sweeper type action. And so for us, I mean, we've had 3 guys create cutters this year. We have 2 guys that have a sinker, and we have 2 guys that have created splitters. And so those are some of the differences that we kind of have that guys are molding into and understanding and know, like, hey, these are options for us to help us get outs on the mound and also to produce us runs at the plate.
For sure. And Coach, you mentioned really your youth within your program. Can you talk about some of the standout freshmen that have really impressed you early on?
Yeah, so we have a kid out from ISA. His Max Miller. Everyone thinks it's Mueller, but it's Miller. And he's been nails for us all year. I mean, he's been our number 1. He's not a high velo guy, but he has crazy high spin rate. I mean, at times he'll have up to 3,000 RPMs for his breaking ball. So he's been really good for us. A guy that came on after the first 3 weeks is Joshua Barnt. He's a Milwaukee kid here, kind of under the radar guy. Didn't have a lot of exposure, didn't play with like the big organizations. Actually, I got the requests from Julian Haliga from here in Milwaukee. He's one of the first people that I introduced myself to because I knew he had a lot of ties here in this area with baseball, and got Josh to come with us, and he has really done well for us. Another kid he just threw this week, we kind of talked about it before we got going here, was Jake Catalano from Brookfield East. He was a Halos kid. And so we've had great success with those guys. They've been really big pieces for us this year. We got Luke Kleekamp to come back to Oak Creek. So he's been another big power arm for us that's been coming out of the pen. Those are 4 of the freshmen that have been. We have others, of course. And then a couple guys on the offensive side. We actually have a kid from Texas. His name is Jackson Crawford. He's been great for us. He's in our outfielder. He's our leadoff guy. He's been huge for us. Unfortunately, he's been hurt for last week. We're getting him back, though, this weekend, which is good. But he's been a huge piece for us. And then another huge bat for us is Jaden Jung out from Sun Prairie. He's been huge. I mean, he's got real pop. And so he's been catching for us and playing some first base when he needs to, or DH, and he's been in the middle of the order all year long for us. And so those guys have been great for us. I mean, there's a ton of other guys that are getting to play. And like I said, most of the times we're starting 6 of them in the field. And so we've had lots of guys given opportunities, and that's the one thing is that you'll see our lineup. I mean, we've had like 18 guys get like 35 plus at bats a piece this year, which was a lot different than last year's team. Last year's team, we had 12 hitters. And so if you were slumping, well, you're going to keep hitting because there was no one to take you out. And this year, we just had a little bit more depth. And so I think that will really help because I think a lot of guys are maturing here as the season's gone on and kind of figuring out what they need to do to be successful at this level.
As you're talking about those freshmen taking the next step or getting experience, could you explain a little bit about why JUCO baseball can be a better alternative for some players? You played JUCO, you coached at a different junior college before coming here. What is it that maybe the JUCO experience from a baseball standpoint provides you with that you might not get at a 4-year school?
I mean, some of the biggest things are the time constraints. I mean, you kind of don't have a lot of rules when it comes to how long you can practice, how much you can practice. Where at the 4 years, it's very limited at some levels. Others have a little bit better limitations. We also get to play a ton more games. I mean, we get to play, I think it's like 14 or 16 dates in the fall time for the region. It used to be games, and now they just do dates. So, I mean, we go out in the fall time, and we play 10 to 14 double headers in the fall time of other competition. I mean, we'll play 4 years, we'll go to showcases, we'll play other junior colleges. And so you get to do all of that where some of those schools get 1 or 2 dates. That's it, to play outside competition. And I think, for me, I think you learn the most by playing the game. And so we're really big on, we want to play games, find out what we struggled with in game, and then work on it in practice. Which is why we like to play, if we can, we try to play 2 games a weekend in the fall time and then come back on the weekdays and work on those things that we struggled with and say, all right, now we're going to go out again this week and put that in and see where we're at now. And so I tell guys, it's one thing to mess up and do those things in practice. It's another to see it actually happen in games and cause you wins and losses. And I think that's whenever guys start to really realize, like, oh, wow, okay, this hurts us if I'm not able to do this. I really do need to work on this and improve on this. Or they see, like, hey, I can get away with it here, but I might not be able to against another team or whatever it might be. And so I think it just kind of gets in their brain a little bit more of like, hey, okay, I need to fix these things. But I love the JUCO route. Like you said, I played it. I've been coaching it now. I think this is year 7, 6, 7, something like that. And I mean, ultimately, you're a freshman getting to go against freshman and sophomore. I mean, you go to a 4-year, and I love the 4-year route. I love my 2 years at the 4-year, and I even coached in my first 2 years out of college. And so I love it. I think there's lots of pros to it. But you could be a guy that's 17, 18 years old, and you're competing against a 22, 23-year-old that's been playing for 5 years, right? He's definitely going to have the upper hand. But I'm sure they spin it and say, hey, you can learn from him and everything. But for us, you're going to have a really good opportunity to play right away. And that's what you're seeing right now. I mean, not too many places do you go and you see 6, 7 freshmen playing every single day in a lineup. And so that's just a lot of game experience that you wouldn't get at most 4 years. And so I think that's one of the biggest things. I mean, the other one, like I said, is just the fact that, I mean, during our year, you could play up to 70 games. 70 to 80 games in a whole entire year in 9 months. And then that doesn't even include us sending you out to go play summer ball after that. So, I mean, you get 100 to 120 games under your belt in 1 year. I'd say that you're going to have a chance to be successful just based off of the amount of reps you're getting.
Yeah, I remember my freshman year, I was at a 4-year school, and there was somebody I faced who was 6 years older than me.
Yeah.
I was maybe in 6th or 7th grade when he started college. I'm like, this doesn't seem very fair to be in the college level with him.
Yeah. Yep. I get it.
One of the other unique things about JUCO is obviously you're trying to win, but you're also trying to develop players for the next level. You want to send players to 4-year schools. So how do you balance that? How do you balance the development of players and trying to get them to 4-year schools, make them attractive to some of their prospective universities, versus also trying to win right now? How do you balance that?
So I tell guys, it's kind of weird in my recruiting spiel that I give guys that come on camps and everything. I tell guys it's my job to recruit you into this program as much as it is to recruit you out of the program, which is very unique because whenever you're at the 4-year, you're trying to recruit them in, and you got to keep them for 4 years, 5 years. And with the today and how the portal is and how guys are able to bounce around so much, I feel like a lot of schools are becoming junior colleges without even knowing. They just got a 4-year title and a little bit more expensive. And so for us, that's why I tell guys is like, this is your 2 years to develop and get to the level that you weren't getting recruited at coming out of high school that you feel like you should have been. And sometimes that's a reality check for guys. And I tell guys, like, we give a lot of tough love here. We're very hard-nosed when it comes to that and very straightforward. Like, hey, you wanted to go to X, Y, and Z school, one of those, and you didn't get recruited, didn't get the offer you wanted to. This is your second opportunity to have that happen, right? And so you have the unlimited practice times. You can have the weights. We have nutritionalists. We have the trainers. All that in place here for you to work on your craft, get bigger, faster, stronger, clean up what you need to, while also getting a really good education for a very cheap price, and now gives you another opportunity to get recruited out of here. And you'll see guys, sometimes you'll have a guy who will get offers after the freshman year. And that's one of those things that you have to know as a coach, like, yes, you want to win, and you're trying to keep those guys here for 2 years. But at the same time, if you're getting guys moved on to the highest level possible, you're being successful. And I think that's sometimes goes unnoticed at some places, is that, like, yes, you want to win and win at a high clip, but it's the other things as well and being successful. That's something I do here. That's my other job, is to be our academic advisor for our athletes. And so we have both success on and off the field is what you're looking for. And that's something that I've really tried to bring in here, where is our first time ever in the school's history that we could find in our archives of our whole entire collective sports department having above a 3.00 GPA. And so that's something that can't go unnoticed and unannounced, as well as what you're doing on the field as well.
In your own career, like, why did you decide to go play junior college baseball?
I did it because I really like to coach. I thought that I would have a really good opportunity to play as well, and it worked out for me. I mean, I was a pitcher for 2 years, and I think I threw over 80 innings in my 2 years at that junior college. I think I threw like 40 and 50 back-to-back years for innings and everything. And so that was one of the things for me. Another thing was it was a smaller atmosphere, which I came from a pretty small high school. I came from Savannah, Missouri. We were the smallest Class 3 in Missouri, where my graduating class was like 200 kids, 210 kids, where like I visited some big schools, and I'm like, there's 200 kids in my classroom, not in my whole entire class. And so it was a real big eye-opener for me, going to some of the visits. And I ended up visiting 2 junior colleges and 3 4 years during my time in high school, and really liked both junior colleges. I ended up not picking one because I was a little worried that it was going to close down being there, and I'm glad that I didn't, because it did after my freshman year, and so I would have been leaving it after 1 year of playing. And so I felt like I really made the right decision. But it was nice because it was a smaller town atmosphere, which is what I was used to, and I thought that I would have a good opportunity to play as long as I worked hard and was able to and fortunate enough to play. And so it allowed me to get more money, honestly, after the 2 years, to go to one of the 4 years that I was actually interested in coming out of high school, but I wasn't going to get as much money coming in as a freshman as I was as a junior. So it really helped me out financially as well.
And Coach, when you're on your recruiting hunt, like throughout the entire year for looking for your future, pretty much, can you talk about some of the intangibles that you look for in a high school athlete that you're looking to bring into your own program?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different depending on position and honestly what we're looking for. Like I said, speed is something that we really look for. Of course, you can never go wrong with left-handed bats. So if you're a left-handed bat, you're just going to have already a star by your name on us to at least watch you, because I think it's really tough. Like I said, one of the biggest things is size. Can't teach size. And so we kind of look at those. When it comes to the aspect of the actual game itself, a lot of thing is hands. How your hands work and how you move laterally. And so for us, we're really big on trying to bring in as many athletic kids as possible. And so we want an athletic third baseman, we want an athletic first baseman, we want our catchers to be athletic, and so on, because that's what we do is we run and we stay aggressive. And so that's something that we really, really work on and try to recruit when going out there. You'll get away with it every once in a while if we're looking for, like, hey, we're going to look for one corner guy, don't care, we just want a guy who has juice. All right, so we're going to tone it down right here and say, okay, we're looking for the most power that we have out there, and this is the one spot that it's going to be. But overall, position-wise, it's going to be athletes. Athletes and guys that can swing it. We tell everyone that comes in, the bat's going to play. The bat's going to play unless you're catcher, shortstop. Right? Then you can get away with not having as great of a bat, because those are the 2 most important spots on the field defensively in our eyes. And so you'll see we give up a little bit of defense for offensive output. And that's what we tell guys. Now, if you can't do the offensive output, you better be elite defensively then. And so that's the give and take. But, I mean, we're looking for more offensive guys whenever we're recruiting. On the pitching side, like I said, we do a little bit of everything. I mean, ultimately, it's can a guy control 2 pitches? I know I'm not going to go get a guy that can do 3 and 4 pitches. That kid is going to go to a very high level if he can command 4 pitches and especially have the velo. And so for us, it's like, hey, can we find 2 and then have the ability for us to create a third one for him? to be successful. And so that's one of the big things we look at. Of course, we're always trying to go after velo. We don't always get it. So our biggest thing then is command the breaking ball, and how is the breaking ball? Because we feel like we can continue to work on a guy and have kids grow that have good size and projectability to be able to improve the velo then, and work off of what they are successful with right now, and then build their weaknesses up to be not such a weakness for them. And so, that's kind of how our team, we don't have a ton of velo guys right now. We have a ton of guys that can really spin it, and those are the ones that have been successful, or the ones that are really funky. And so you'll have that, but we're kind of moving towards trying to get a little bit more projectable guys, where it's like 6'2", 6'3", 6'4" guys if we can. But at the same time, the 5'10" righty that can really spin it is our number one guy. Max is 6 foot on a good day, but he can really spin it. And he's a guy who's been successful for us all year long. And so I think the number one thing is you have to be able to command an off-speed pitch for us to be able to really look at it. Or you're going to have to be a 6'6" guy that is upper 80s, that we say, hey, we can develop a pitch for you then.
So as we wrap up, for the high school baseball player from Wisconsin who's listening to this podcast, make your best recruiting pitch. Why should he, or maybe speak directly to him, why should you go play at MATC?
It's a great atmosphere. We're very fortunate with the facilities we have as we continue to improve and get even better. It's always nice to be able to play on the blue turf. I think that's one of the greatest things, and you're going to get coached. That is one thing that I promise every single guy. You're going to get coached, and you're going to get coached hard, and you're going to have an opportunity to play. I promise no one a starting spot. I promise and guarantee everyone the opportunity to earn a playing spot. And so we're not recruiting guys in here just to be a number. We're recruiting guys in here to make a difference for this program.
Yeah, that blue turf, definitely a good recruiting pitch. I got to play on it once. Once in my career. So definitely a unique experience. I like the blue turf. It's a nice look. But we really appreciate you coming on, Coach.
Yes.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
And before we go, of course, our games of the week. We had a pretty good schedule last week, of course, the Invitational. But we've got another good schedule coming up this week as we're in full swing here in the WIAA season. Early in the week, we've got Arrowhead and Oconomowoc Monday and Tuesday, Kettle Moraine and Muskego playing. Also Monday, Tuesday, Notre Dame Academy plays against Manitowoc Lincoln, Seneca and Ithaca, Verona and Janesville Craig. Those last three all playing on Monday. Who are you looking to watch in that early week slate of matchups?
Yeah, Monday or really today. It's going to be a really fun slate in the WIA and expanding into Tuesday. I'm looking at Arrowhead and Oconomowoc. Obviously, there are 3 Power 25 matchups going on during that time, but that's really the highlight from the Classic 8. And obviously, Kettle Moraine, Muskego too. We talked about before and how loaded that conference is. We talk about them a lot, but those are going to be two really good games. And obviously, the pitching staffs for both teams are really elite. That's going to be some of the best arms in the state going at it back and forth for 2 days. And I'll be really curious to see who comes out on top in both games, really.
Moving forward a little bit in the week, New Berlin-Eisenhower and New Berlin West play in an always heated rivalry, and that'll be on Wednesday. Madison Memorial and Sun Prairie East also on Wednesday. Which of those two matchups are you more excited to see?
Really, both of them will be good. I fully believe that. And I really liked what I saw from Madison Memorial this weekend. They played in the nightcap on Friday night at the Rock, and they're super fundamentally sound. They don't give up very many runs, and really they are able to get the job done and manufacture runs on the offensive end. And Sun Prairie East is like the same version of that. So it'll be 2 really solid programs, both well coached, very fundamentally sound, just going at it for a day on Wednesday in a conference matchup. And I'm really excited to see, again, who comes out on top of that. It'll be interesting, another Power 25 matchup for us to take in.
Yeah, and then to close out the week, Middleton and Union Grove, they play on Friday, and Aquinas against Westosha Central on Saturday. Is there anything you want to share about either of those 2 matchups?
Yeah, Aquinas, again, is playing another non-conference game really on the east side of the state. So they're traveling across again. I believe they had to play Kimberly either this past week or 2 weeks ago. and they're really challenging themselves. I don't see them as a stereotypical like Division III team. I think they're stronger than that. They're really pushing themselves, similar to the D2 team in St. Thomas More we brought up previously. They're pushing themselves in a non-conference slate, and that's obviously going to make them better. And West Scotia Central still has not lost this year, and they're on a really good stretch right now. So that Saturday game will be super exciting to witness.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for that one. I might be most excited for Kettle Moraine and Muskego. I'm fully aboard the Kettle Moraine hype train after seeing them. Even though they are a little bit thin on pitching, they just seem to know how to pull out wins. And Muskego, of course, has all the prospects. We talked about the underclassmen as they're developing and getting acclimated to high school baseball.
Right. It's just another night in the Classic A conference. That's all I see right there. So with that, thank you again for listening in. Good luck to all teams this week, and we'll talk to you next week in week 5.